I never thought moving into a quiet suburban neighborhood would feel like stepping into a battlefield. At first glance, Willow Creek Estates looked like the picture-perfect postcard of the American dream: neatly trimmed hedges, identical mailboxes, and neighbors who waved politely as they jogged past with their dogs. The HOA promised peaceful living and a sense of community. That was exactly what I thought I needed when I signed the lease. I wasn't looking for trouble. Trouble usually found me. I live with a condition that most people don't notice at first glance. It makes certain daily tasks more difficult, sometimes even dangerous. That's why I have Daisy. She's not just a dog, she's my lifeline. A golden retriever with eyes that could melt even the hardest heart, Daisy is trained to sense when my condition flares up. She nudges me, grounds me, and if necessary, fetches my medication, or alerts others when I'm in distress. To me, she isn't just a pet, she's the reason I can live independently. On our first morning walk through the neighborhood, Daisy trotted happily beside me, her service vest bright red against her golden fur. She walked with that calm, focused demeanor that only service dogs have. Neighbors turned their heads and smiled. Most people here loved dogs, I assumed. Children waved, one little boy even asked if he could pet her, and I gently explained. She's working right now, buddy. But thank you for asking. The boy nodded solemnly, as though I'd let him in on a secret. That small moment gave me hope. Maybe, just maybe, this place could become a real home. But it didn't take long before I met her. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Daisy and I walked past one of the corner houses, the one with the pristine flowerbeds and the welcome friends sign by the door. Out stepped a woman in her late 50s, arms crossed, lips pursed so tightly it looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Her name was Karen. Of course, I didn't know her name yet. I only knew the sharp tone she used when her eyes landed on Daisy. "Excuse me," she barked, marching toward us in her crisp white blouse and perfectly ironed slacks. "What is that dog doing here?" I blinked, caught off guard. We live here. We're just taking a walk." "This is a private community," she snapped, pointing at Daisy's vest as though it were an offensive symbol. "Animals aren't allowed in common areas without prior HOA approval." I tightened my grip on Daisy's leash, my voice steady but firm. "She's a service dog. She's federally protected. She can go anywhere I go." Karen's eyes narrowed. For a moment, I thought she might argue, but she simply sniffed, turned up her nose, and muttered, "We'll see about that," before stomping back into her house. Daisy leaned against my leg, sensing my tension. I scratched behind her ear, forcing a smile. "It's okay, girl. Just another person who doesn't understand." At the time, I thought it was over. I thought maybe she was just having a bad day. But I should have known better. Because when it comes to people like Karen, one bad day is never enough. For a few days, life in Willow Creek seemed normal again. Daisy and I stuck to our routines: morning walks, training exercises, and quiet evenings on the patio. She was happiest when lying at my feet, tail thumping lazily while I sipped coffee and read. I tried to convince myself Karen was just another nosy neighbor who liked to bark louder than she bit. But then the letters started coming. The first one arrived, tucked neatly under my front door, printed on official HOA stationery. Notice of violation: animal in common areas. According to Willow Creek Estates bylaws, all animals must be approved and registered with the HOA. You are in violation of these rules by walking your dog in shared spaces without written consent. My stomach dropped. Consent? For a service dog? That wasn't just petty, it was illegal. I called the number listed at the bottom, but no one picked up. I left a voicemail explaining Daisy's status, as a federally protected service animal. I figured that would be the end of it. But a week later, another letter arrived. This one threatened a fine if the animal disturbances continued. Disturbances. Daisy, who had never barked at a soul, who walked so quietly that even the rabbits in the hedges barely noticed her. I knew exactly where this was coming from. The next time I saw Karen, she was out front trimming her rose bushes with military precision. Her eyes followed me the entire time Daisy and I walked by. I could feel the weight of her glare pressing into my back. Finally, she called out. "I've already spoken with the board about your animal. Don't think you can just move in here and ignore the rules." I turned, jaw tight. She's not just an animal. She's a service dog. Federal law overrides HOA policy. Karen smirked, twirling the garden shears in her hand like some villain in a bad soap opera. "We'll see what the board has to say about that." From then on, it felt like Daisy and I were under surveillance. Whenever we walked through the neighborhood, Karen was there, sometimes on her porch, sometimes peeking through her curtains. I'd catch glimpses of her snapping pictures with her phone, muttering under her breath about violations and unfit neighbors. The letters escalated into warnings. The warnings escalated into threats of fines. And the threats turned into outright harassment. One evening, as Daisy and I returned from a grocery run, I found a note taped to my door in Karen's sharp, angry handwriting. "This is your final warning. Get rid of the dog or face the consequences." My hands shook as I crumpled the paper. Daisy pressed her nose against my palm, grounding me in the way only she could. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered to her. "And neither are you." But the truth was, Karen wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The harassment reached a boiling point on a humid Saturday morning when Daisy and I went out for our usual walk. The streets were quiet, the sun barely peeking over the rooftops. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd have a peaceful day. But as we passed Karen's house, her front door swung open with a dramatic bang. She stormed out, clutching a spray bottle in one hand. Her eyes locked on Daisy. And in that split second, I realized her obsession had taken a dangerous turn. The air felt heavy that morning, as though the neighborhood itself sensed something bad was about to happen. Daisy walked calmly beside me, her vest strapped snug around her chest, her nose twitching as she caught familiar scents from the lawns and gardens. We were just about to turn the corner when Karen came storming down her walkway, her face twisted in that all-too-familiar scowl. But this time, there was something different, something wild, in her eyes. "Enough is enough," she screeched, brandishing the spray bottle like it was a weapon. "You think the rules don't apply to you? You think you're special because of that mutt?" My stomach lurched. "Karen, don't." But before I could finish, she lunged forward and pressed the trigger. A fine mist burst from the nozzle, sharp and chemical. It hit Daisy full in the face. Time froze. Daisy yelped, a sound I had never heard from her before, sharp, broken, filled with pain. She stumbled back, pawing desperately at her eyes. Her tail tucked so far under her belly it almost disappeared. She whined, confused, terrified. "No." My scream tore out of me raw, shaking. I dropped to my knees, fumbling for Daisy, pulling her close. Her fur was damp, her eyes squeezed shut against the sting. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. "It's okay, baby, I've got you. I've got you." But Karen wasn't done. "You don't belong here," she shrieked, still clutching the spray bottle. "That dog is a menace. You're ruining this community." I looked up at her, rage burning through my fear. "She's a service dog. She's protected by federal law. Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Karen froze for half a heartbeat, but then her lips curled into a smirk. It's just cleaning spray. Nothing that will kill her. Maybe now you'll learn. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone. I'm calling the police. Neighbors had started gathering now, drawn by the sound of Daisy's cries. Mrs. Thompson from across the street gasped, pressing a hand to her mouth. A jogger slowed to a stop, glaring at Karen. Someone muttered, "Did she just spray the dog?" Karen's smug expression flickered, but she tried to cover it with indignation. Don't act like I'm the bad guy. That animal shouldn't even be out here. I was protecting the neighborhood. But nobody looked convinced. All eyes were on Daisy, who whimpered softly as I dabbed at her face with my sleeve. My chest ached seeing her like that, my brave, steady partner reduced to trembling by cruelty. When the sirens finally wailed in the distance, relief washed over me like a tide. Help was coming. Karen, however, paled. She dropped the spray bottle to the ground as if it suddenly burned her hand. For the first time since I'd met her, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. The sirens cut through the humid air, growing louder until 2 patrol cars rolled up to the curb in front of Karen's house. Red and blue lights splashed across the manicured lawns and perfect driveways of Willow Creek Estates, shattering the illusion of its quiet charm. Karen stiffened as the officers stepped out. One was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a steady voice. The other, a woman with sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. I held Daisy close, stroking her fur as she trembled against me. My sleeve was damp where I'd tried to wipe the chemical from her face. Her breathing was uneven, each whimper slicing through me like glass. The taller officer approached first. "Sir, are you the one who called?" I nodded quickly, my voice shaking. "Yes, she sprayed my service dog. She's a federally registered service animal. She's hurt, please, she needs medical attention." The woman officer crouched beside Daisy, keeping her voice calm. "Looks like chemical exposure. We'll get animal control and a vet on the line." She glanced up at her partner, her jaw tightening. Karen stepped forward then, her voice dripping with false innocence. "Officers, don't let him fool you. That dog has been terrorizing the neighborhood for weeks. Barking, chasing children. Lies." I snapped, my voice breaking. "She's trained. She doesn't bark, she doesn't chase. She's a service dog. She saves my life." Karen folded her arms, lifting her chin. "Maybe that's what he told you, but I saw it with my own eyes. That animal is dangerous. I was only defending myself and this community." The tall officer turned to her slowly. Did you spray the dog?" Karen hesitated, her mouth opening and closing. For a moment, I thought she might deny it outright. But then her pride got the better of her. "I did," she said, crossing her arms tighter. "I used a cleaning solution. Harmless. It was just a warning to keep that beast under control." The woman officer stood, her eyes narrowing. "You realize what you've just admitted to, right?" Karen scoffed. "What? It's just a dog. What's the worst that can happen? A fine." The officer's voice dropped, slow and deliberate. "No, not just a dog. A service animal. Under federal law, intentionally harming or interfering with a service animal is a serious crime." Karen blinked, her smirk faltering. "What are you talking about? That can't be." The tall officer stepped closer, his presence imposing. "It is. The Americans with Disabilities Act protects service animals. What you did can carry heavy fines and jail time. It's not just a neighborhood dispute anymore. It's federal." For the first time, Karen froze. Her face drained of color, her bravado slipping like a mask that suddenly didn't fit. She stammered, That's ridiculous. I didn't mean to, I was just. The female officer cut her off. Intent doesn't erase the damage. That dog is this man's lifeline. You interfered with his medical assistance. That's the law, whether you like it or not. The neighbors who had gathered on the sidewalks whispered among themselves. Mrs. Thompson shook her head in disgust. The jogger who had witnessed everything muttered, serves her right. Phones were out now, recording every word. Karen's humiliation was public, undeniable. I held Daisy closer, tears stinging my eyes as I whispered to her. You're okay, girl. You're strong. I'm right here. She leaned against me, still trembling, but alive. That was all that mattered. The officers read Karen her rights, as they placed her under temporary detainment. She sputtered protests, her voice rising shrill and panicked. You can't do this to me. I'm on the HOA board. I was protecting property values. The tall officer's voice was firm. You sprayed a service dog. Property values have nothing to do with this. You're under investigation for a federal offense. Karen's words dissolved into incoherent mutters, as they guided her toward the squad car. I sat on the curb, still clutching Daisy, my whole body trembling with adrenaline. A neighbor approached quietly and offered me a bottle of water. You did the right thing calling the cops, she said softly. We've all seen how she treats you. Enough is enough. For the first time since moving into Willow Creek, I felt something shift. The stares I had grown used to weren't pitying or judgmental anymore, they were supportive. Neighbors who had remained silent before were standing on my side now. The woman officer returned after speaking into her radio. We've got an emergency vet on the way. Animal control will transport her and make sure she's safe. Do you have her service documents handy? Just for the record. I nodded and handed them over from Daisy's vest pouch. She reviewed them, then gave me a small, reassuring smile. You're covered. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She has every right to be here, and so do you. Tears welled in my eyes again, this time from relief. Thank you, I whispered. The officer crouched beside Daisy, stroking her gently. You've got a brave girl here. She'll be okay. When the emergency vet finally arrived and took Daisy for treatment, my heart ached watching her go, but I knew she was in good hands. I also knew that justice, at least for now, was on my side. As the patrol car carrying Karen pulled away, I caught one last glimpse of her through the window. The look on her face was no longer smug or self-righteous. It was fear. Real, unshakable fear. Because for once, she wasn't in control. And she had finally learned that there are some lines you just don't cross, especially when it comes to a service dog.